Magandang araw mga ka-aerial defense, may ibabahagi na naman ako sa inyo dahil ngayong araw na ito ay may bagay tayong pag-uusapan. Estados Unidos nagbabala sa China na itigil ang pagsalakay nito sa West Philippine Sea, pero bago tayo magpatuloy wag mo muna kalimutan mag-like, share, and subscribe. Paki-follow at like muna ng aming page na nasa description na ang link. Muling pinanindigan ng United States ang pangako nito sa defense treaty nito sa Pilipinas, kasunod ng walang habas na maniobra ng China laban sa mga sasakyang pandagat ng Pilipinas sa West Philippine Sea nitong weekend. Muli nilang pinagtitibay na ang Article 4 1951 US and Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty ay umaabot sa mga armadong pag-atake sa armadong puwersa, pampublikong sasakyang panghimpapawid, o sasakyang panghimpapawid ng Pilipinas, kabilang ang mga Coast Guard nito saan man sa South China Sea. Ito ang sabi ni Matthew Miller na tagapagsalita ng US Department of State sa isang pahayag. Ang China, sa dalawang magkahiwalay na insidente noong weekend, ay nagpaputok ng mga water cannon at nagpatuloy sa walang ingat na mga maniobra laban sa mga sasakyang pandagat ng Pilipinas sa West Philippine Sea. Sinabi mismo ni Pangulong Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. na ang mga aksyon ng China ay nagpatibay sa determinasyon ng Pilipinas na ipagtanggol at protektahan ang soberanya, mga karapatan sa soberanya, at jurisdiksyon nito sa West Philippine Sea. Sa kabilang banda, binansagan ni Miller ang mga aksyon ng China bilang labag sa batas, na sinasabing sinira nito ang katatagan ng rehiyon, sa pamamagitan ng paghadlang sa ligtas na operasyon ng mga sasakyang pandagat ng Pilipinas, na nagdadala ng mga probisyon sa mga miyembro ng Pilipinong nasa serbisyo na nakatalaga sa 2nd Thomas Shoal. Nakialam ang China sa mga legal na operasyong pandagat ng Pilipinas at sa paggamit ng mga sasakyang pandagat ng Pilipinas ng kalayaan sa paglalayag sa karagatan. Dagdag pa ng US Department of States, ang paghadlang sa mga linya ng supply sa matagal nang nakatayong outpost na ito, at ang pakikialam sa mga legal na operasyon ng maritime ng Pilipinas ay sumisira sa katatagan ng rehiyon. Sabi pa ni Miller, ang mga pagkilos na ito ay sumasalamin hindi lamang sa walang ingat na pagwawalang bahala sa kaligtasan at kabuhayan ng mga Pilipino, kundi pati na rin sa internasyonal na batas. Babala niya sa China. Pagkatapos ay nanawagan si Miller sa China na sumunod sa desisyon ng arbitral noong 2016, at itigil ang mapanganib at destabilizing na pag-uugali. Noong Oktubre, muling pinagtibay ng US ang Mutual Defense Treaty nito sa Pilipinas, matapos ang pagbangga ng isang Chinese maritime militia sa mga barkong pandagat ng Pilipinas patungo sa isang resupply mission sa mga tropang nakatalaga sa AYUNGIN Shoal. Isiniwalat naman ng National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea na aabot sa mahigit 40 mga barko ang kanilang na-monitor, sa kasagsagan ng ikinasang rotation and resupply mission ng tropa ng mga militar sa BRP Sierra Madre sa bahagi ng AYUNGIN Shoal.
On the part of the Philippine Coast Guard, we'll be discussing the operational details of the resupply, the recently completed resupply mission. And of course, after this briefing, we're going to discuss as well the operational details of the humanitarian mission of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources last Saturday. For the last completed RORE mission yesterday, as you are aware, there were 2 Philippine Coast Guard vessels that our Commandant, Admiral Ronnie Hill Gavan, deployed to support the resupply mission of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. That is BRP Sindangan and BRP Cabra, to support the resupply boats of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, ML Kalayaan and Unaiza May 1. Next slide. The operational area of the Philippine Coast Guard vessels came from Buliluyan Port and proceeded to the staging area in Sabina Shoal. That is a distance of 90.5 nautical miles. And then from there, in Sabina, we're going to proceed together with the resupply boats going to AYUNGIN Shoal with a total distance of 14 nautical miles. Next slide. Next slide. As early as 5:40 in the morning of December 10, we were able to monitor an unknown Chinese maritime militia vessel because we were not able to see the bow number of this vessel, and it's already conducting dangerous maneuver towards the resupply contingent. Next slide. Around 5:50 in the morning, China Coast Guard vessel 5204 already started using its water cannon against ML Kalayaan. More than 3 times with about 5 minutes interval. As you can see on the video, And during this time, around 5:50, there are already 4 Chinese Coast Guard vessels that are shadowing the entire supply contingent. Next slide. Around 5:58, you can see the Chinese maritime militia, not just the Chinese Coast Guard, actively participating in blocking the Philippine Coast Guard vessel in support of this China Coast Guard, so that the MRB 4409 will also be separated from the resupply boats that she is escorting. Next slide. Next slide. As you can see, MRB 4409 was already blocked by the China Coast Guard vessel and 2 Chinese maritime militia. They were successful in separating the Philippine Coast Guard vessel 4409, that is the designated escort for Unaiza May 1. Next slide. Around 6:11 in the morning, ML Kalayaan already received a direct hit of water cannon coming from China Coast Guard 5204. At a distance of around 0.5 nautical miles is the Philippine Coast Guard vessel MRB 4407, documenting how the China Coast Guard vessel and Chinese maritime militia is preventing ML Kalayaan from proceeding to its mission. Next slide. Around 6:20, 9 minutes after ML Kalayaan was directly hit by the China Coast Guard vessel, the Philippine Coast Guard proceeded to its location, noting the fact that it's no longer moving. It means that it has already engine trouble. This is the reason why ML Kalayaan, from this moment on until the completion of the resupply mission, it was already securely moored together with the MRB 4407. In short, it no longer has the capability to proceed to its mission. Around 6:24, on the other hand, the other Coast Guard vessel, MRB 4409, is also being sprinkled by the Chinese Coast Guard as it escorted the Unaiza May 1. Probably you are wondering with the videos that were tweeted by Ray Powell, wherein Unaiza May 1 was also separated from its Coast Guard escort. It's because of this. MRB 4409 was also corralled at this particular time, also almost the same time that Unaiza May 1 had a near collision with the Chinese Coast Guard and also being water cannon. Next slide. Next slide. This was the video that I'm referring. Around 6:39, you can see that Unaiza May 1 is almost having a near collision with this Chinese Coast Guard vessel, as she is also being water cannoned at the same time. Interestingly, 3 hours after this incident, the Chinese government, through the Chinese Coast Guard, already released this statement saying that it is the resupply boat that caused the collision between the Chinese Coast Guard and our resupply boat. Next slide. That's why around 7:04, it was already decided by the Armed Forces of the Philippines that ML Kalayaan will no longer proceed in completing its resupply mission. It was already decided that it will be towed back by MRB 4407 to return to Palawan. Next slide. Around 8 a.m., Unaiza May 1 was already successful in entering the shoal for her to proceed in unloading her cargo on board BRP Sierra Madre. For almost 3 hours of unloading the cargo, Unaiza May 1 has already departed from BRP Sierra Madre and went outside of the shoal in Ayungin. Next slide. However, while the Philippine Coast Guard vessel MRB 4409 the designated escort for Unaiza May 1, was waiting for Unaiza May 1 to complete her unloading of cargo, the Philippine Coast Guard is experiencing this dangerous maneuver from China Coast Guard vessel and the Chinese Maritime Militia. Next slide. In total, the Philippine Coast Guard has documented the presence of all these Coast Guard vessels. There were 7 of them. This is the first time that we were able to see such numerous number of China Coast Guard vessels deployed to prevent the Philippine government in completing our resupply operation in AYUNGIN Shoal. Next slide. These are the Chinese Maritime Militia that we have clearly identified as the one who really participated in blocking the Philippine Coast Guard vessels and the resupply boats. Next slide. It is also worth noting that we have also seen the 2 PLA Navy vessel in that particular location in 2nd Thomas Shoal. Although they are they are maintaining a certain distance away from the resupply contingent, but it's important for us to note that the PLA Navy has also deployed these 2 vessels. Next. In total, we were able to physically monitor 14 Chinese Maritime Militia and 22 Chinese Maritime Militia through AIS. That means they have deployed 36 Chinese Maritime Militia and 8 China Coast Guard vessels. So 36 plus 8, that's 44, and then 2 PLA Navy, that's 46. This is the largest number of maritime forces that we have documented so far in the previous months. Next slide. These are the list of radio challenges that we conducted on the part of BRP Sendangan. We had 27 challenging the China Coast Guard vessel and Chinese Maritime Militia. It received also 15 from China Coast Guard. On the part of BRP Cabra, they challenged this Chinese Maritime forces for 74 times. They were only challenged 8 times. At least this time, we're now compliant with the guidance of the Department of Foreign Affairs for us to constantly and persistently challenge the presence of these maritime forces from China. As you can see, we have more number of times that we challenge the presence of China Coast Guard more than they have challenged us. And then at the same time, in blocking of the Philippine Coast Guard vessels, we noted that there were 3 Chinese Maritime Militia that actively blocked the Coast Guard vessels at a distance only of 10 yards, and the other is 20 meters. Next slide. For the dangerous maneuvers, we have identified at least 5 instances that the dangerous maneuvers were conducted against the Philippine Coast Guard vessels. It is worth noting that 4 of these dangerous maneuvers were conducted by the China Coast Guard, and there is only one unidentified Chinese vessel, most likely a Chinese Maritime Militia, that did a dangerous maneuver against MRB 4409. Next slide, please. For the water cannon incident, we reported that there were 4 instances that the water cannon, our government vessels, for the BRP Cabra, BRP Sendangan, UM1, and ML Kalayaan. However, it's worth noting that for ML Kalayaan, they used their water cannon 3 times at an approximate interval of 5 minutes each. And this was also a direct hit that damaged the ML Kalayaan. Next slide. That ends my briefing for the operational details of the resupply mission.
Ito ang ibinunyag ni Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea Commodore J. Terrela. Batay sa datos na inilabas ni Commodore Terrela, aabot sa kabuuang 46 ang bilang ng mga barko ng China ang kanilang na-monitor sa West Philippine Sea. Mula sa naturang bilang, aabot sa 36 ang kabuuang bilang ng mga Chinese Maritime Militia vessels na kanilang na-monitor kabilang na ang nasa 14 na mga Chinese Maritime Militia vessels, na pisikal na namataan ng tropa noong panahon ng naturang resupply mission, habang nasa 22 na naman ang na-monitor via automatic identification system. Bukod dito ay may na-monitor din silang 8 China Coast Guard vessels sa naturang lugar, at 2 namang barko ng People's Liberation Army Navy na bagamat malayo sa lugar kung nasan ang resupply contingent ay patuloy pa ring isinasaalang-alang ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas. Ayon kay Terila, nasa 7 CCG vessel at 6 na Chinese Maritime Militia vessels ang kanilang naidokumentong mayroong direktang pagkakasangkot sa panghaharas sa mga barko ng Pilipinas. Aniya, ito ang kauna-unahang pagkakataon na nag-deploy ang China ng ganito karaming maritime forces sa nakalipas na mga buwan, para lamang sa pigilan ang isinasagawang rotation at resupply mission ng pamahalaan sa BRP Sierra Madre sa Ayungin Shoal. Kaugnay nito ay iniulat din ni Terila na umabot din sa mahigit 100 ang kabuoang bilang ng mga palitan ng mga radio challenges ng mga barko ng Pilipinas at China, sa gitna ng naturang tensyon sa kasagsagan ng nasabing misyon.
This is China Coast Guard 3305. My contact distance is down. My code is 095 degrees. My speed is 9 knots. All vessels are advised to take shelter. 附近船舶请注意，这里是中国海警三南作战线，火箭操纵系统故障，航向1洞洞，航速6.5节，请过船只注意避让。Naval vessel, this is China Coast Guard 3302. Our control system has broken down. Our course is 100 degrees. Our speed is 6.5 knots. Please pay attention to our ship to avoid forward.
Ano sinasabi nila yan, sir? Ano sinasabi nila?
Ano sir, yung ano daw nila, system daw nila down. Kaya mag-clear daw din sa kanila. Transiting sila na may speed na ganitong 9 knots.
Delikado yun sa barko natin.
Delikado yun sir kasi madilim, hindi natin nakikita sila. Nagpatay sila ng ilaw.
Sinasadya ba, sir?
Oo, sadya yun sir. Palagay ko ang mga nila. Nakuha nila yung strategy nila.
So kanina, sir, iniwasan natin yung mga bangka natin.
Roger, kasi kanina subukan ko lumapit dito sa mga bangka natin na naghanap buhay. Subukan ko doon magtago. Ang nangyari, paikot-ikot din sila. Naalala ko lang yung mga bangka natin, baka pag-ikot niya, mapingit niya, matabaan. Kaya balis na lang ako para sa safety ng bangka.
Habang 5 mga instances naman ng dangerous maneuvers ng mga barko ng China ang kanilang naitala, at nasa 4 instances naman ang naitalang ginawa ng mga ito na pangbobomba ng water cannon na kinabibilang ng 3 beses na pangbobomba ng tubig sa supply vessel na ML Kalayaan, na mayroong 5 minutong interval na nagdulot naman ng pagkasira ng makina nito. Paliwanag ni Terila, bagamat ilang beses nang nakakaranas ang mga barko ng Pilipinas ng panghaharas ng China, partikular na ng mga pangbobomba ng tubig at mga dangerous maneuvers, ay naninindigan pa rin ito na hindi gagamitin ng PCG ang mga water cannon ng kanilang mga barko.
Sir, tanong ko lang, meron ba tayong available vessels that have the capacity to do a water cannon?
Yes, all of our Coast Guard vessels have water cannon. But let me stress the fact, that for the Philippine Coast Guard, we believe that the water cannons that are placed on our vessels are intended for us to carry out our duty in combating fire at sea. This is not something that we consider as an offensive weapon to damage any other vessel. We believe that if we're going to be consistent with that kind of behavior as a Coast Guard organization, we don't need to go down to the level of the Chinese Coast Guard using their water cannon to use it as an offensive weapon and damaging the other vessels. Again, the Coast Guard organizations here in the region has something to do with maritime safety. And with what the China Coast Guard is doing, obviously it doesn't conform with the regional standard of promoting safety.
So sir, every time the Chinese vessels blast us with their water cannons, we cannot do a counter water cannon on them.
Again, we choose to maintain our moral high ground. If they're going to choose to do that kind of barbaric attack to prevent the Philippine Coast Guard or the Armed Forces of the Philippines in completing our resupply operation, then let them be so. But for the Philippine Coast Guard, using a water cannon to respond to such attack is something that we're not going to do. Secondly, we abide with the guidance of the President that we don't have to do anything stupid to escalate the tension.
Samantala, sa kaparehong pulong balitaan naman ay sinabi ni National Security Council Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya, na sa ngayon ay mayroon ng binibalangkas na mga bagong tactics ang National Task Force for West Philippine Sea para sa mga susunod na RORE mission sa BRP Sierra Madre, na nakatakda naman aniya nilang elatag kay Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr., kasunod nga ng pinakabagong pambubuli ng China sa mga barko ng Pilipinas sa West Philippine Sea.
The National Task Force West Philippine Sea has prepared a new national strategy on the West Philippine Sea. And we have made some adjustments given the recent developments, and we hope to be able to present this to the President very soon. So if the question is, will there be adjustments in our movements? Yes, as soon as the President approves the national strategy. Because the President himself is concerned. In his recent statement yesterday, he has expressed his deep concern and his commitment to these missions that we are undertaking. So in consonance with his policy direction, the national strategy has been prepared for the NTF-WPS for his appreciation.
Una nang sinabi ni Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief of Staff General Romeo Bronner Jr., na matinding galit ang kanyang naramdaman ng personal na masaksihan at maranasan ang naturang pangbobomba ng water cannon at panggigit-git ng China sa mga barko ng Pilipinas, sa kanyang pagbisita sa mga tropa ng militar na nakabase sa BRP Sierra Madre sa Ayungin Shoal sakay ng supply vessel na Aneza May 1. Para sa mas madaming update tungkol sa ating defense, abangan lamang ang aking mga bagong video. Para naman sa mga gusto magpa-shoutout, mag-comment lamang po at share, paki-follow at like muna ng aming page na nasa description na ang link. Huwag mo na rin kalimutan mag-like, share, and subscribe. Pindutin mo na rin ang bell para updated kayo sa aking mga video. Maraming salamat po.